size. Good morning, everyone. There's that moment when the two elders either side of you disappear back into the audience, isn't there? And all of a sudden you're standing here alone. A minute ago, Adrian walked up here, and I thought to myself, good, he's come to take over. But no, he abandoned me too. A man was being tailed by a stressed out woman on a busy street. Suddenly the light turned orange just in front of him. He did the right thing, stopping at the light, even though he could have beaten the red, by accelerating through the intersection. The tailgating woman hit the roof and the horn, screaming in frustration as she missed her chance to get across the intersection. As she was still in mid-rant, she heard a tap on her window and she looked up into the serious face of a police officer. The officer made her exit the car, took out his handcuffs and arrested the woman on the spot. He took her to the police station where she was searched, fingerprinted, photographed and placed in a holding cell. After a couple of hours, the policeman returned to the cell and opened the door. The woman was escorted back to the booking office, where the arresting officer was waiting for her with her personal effects. He said, "I am very sorry, madam, for this mistake. You see, I pulled up behind your car while you were blowing your horn, flipping off the guy in front of you and cursing a blue streak at him. When I noticed the Choose Life license plate holder, the What Would Jesus Do bumper sticker, the Follow Me to Sunday School bumper sticker, and the chrome-plated Christian fish emblem on your trunk. And so naturally I assumed you had stolen the car." Have you ever heard somebody say, "Oh, I thought he was a Christian"? How important is our Christian image and how we appear to those around about us? How important are those Christian boundaries we all live within? Are you responsible for your Christian image as it's seen by others? In your daily life and actions, how would you like to be seen and heard? Because make no mistake, the moment you say, "I'm a Christian," you will be seen and you will be observed. My question this morning is, how does the world observe me? And how does the world observe you? Nebuchadnezzar awoke with a very strange feeling. A confused look ran across his face as he tried to claw back the reality that had been last night's dream. It had been huge, magnificent. It had been epic. And he knew that somehow it was the most important dream he had perhaps ever had. It was part of his future, part of his history, and all of his purpose. But he couldn't remember it, no matter how hard he tried. It slipped and slid from his grasping mind, eluding his memory, and always just beyond his mental reach. Ellen White says, "The king was troubled." And although the king's mind was deeply impressed, he found it impossible when he awoke to recall the particulars. In perplexity and frustration, the king sent out some texts and an email and assembled all his wise men, the magicians, the astrologers and the sorcerers, and he addressed them so. Sounding a bit like Martin Luther King, he said, "I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know this dream." About now, something starts to become clear. The great king Nebuchadnezzar does not fully trust his wise men, magicians, astrologers, and sorcerers. In fact, it's clear he thinks his wise men, magicians, astrologers, and sorcerers are full of, correct assumptions and deceit. And as desperate as he now is to remember his dream, he doesn't have time for their lies and their mistruths. Nebuchadnezzar is not a fool, and he's certainly not someone to be messed with. He is in fact an intelligent and intuitive man, and he is now certain that his future lies somewhere in this dream. He can just feel it. Gathered in the antechamber, the wise men, magicians, astrologers, and sorcerers assemble to listen to the king's request, and the king has one question for them. What is my dream? Google tells me there are 5 surprising factors that can cause me to have weird or disturbing dreams. Number 1, you ate a huge spicy meal for dinner. Number 2, you have been watching Shortland Street. Number 3, halfway through the night you discovered that the burritos and the roller coaster didn't actually mix. Number 4, your wife has discovered and confiscated your secret store of Oreos. Number 5, you find out you have the wrong dates for your sermon and it's actually the Sabbath. And so the wise men responded, "O king, live forever. Tell those servants about the dream and we will show you the interpretation." In other words, tell us your dream and we'll tell you what it means. This is not at all what the king wanted to hear. He is frustrated with their resolve and their evasive answers, and suspicious because despite their ongoing pretentious claims to reveal the secrets of men, they seem unwilling, and he suspected unable to give him the answer. The king again commands his wise men, adding promises of wealth and honour on one hand and threats of death on the other, demanding they tell him the interpretation of not only the interpretation of the dream, but the dream itself. This so he knows he cannot be manipulated. In frustration, he cries out, "The thing is gone from me. And if you will make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut into pieces, and your houses made a dunghill." This new announcement doesn't sound like something his advisors are keen on. "But if ye show me the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive gifts and rewards from me, and great honour. You'll win lotto." There's a hint of desperation now, and the wise men leave in unison to deliberate. After a time they return, but with yet again the same answer. "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show you the interpretation of it." Nebuchadnezzar is now very angry. In his mind, his suspicions have been confirmed, and in fact, he is super angry by the apparent treachery of those whom he trusted. The Bible says, he declares, "I know of a certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak to me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me the interpretation." History tells us that Nebuchadnezzar was a warrior king of some note. He is often described as the greatest military leader of Neo-Babylonian Empire, ruling from 605 to 562 BC in the area around the Tigris-Euphrates basin. His leadership saw numerous military successes, and so great was his might and power that mostly he simply conquered unchallenged. He is well known for his skills as an architect in the construction of building works such as the famous Ishtar Gate, now in Germany, and the Hanging Gardens, the architecture of Babylon, and of course the golden statue, to add to the list. The walls of Babylon and the Ishtar Gate were considered so impressive that ancient writers claimed they should have been included on the list of the world's 7 wonders. Babylon was included on that list for the attraction of the Hanging Gardens. Secular history records Nebuchadnezzar as brutal, powerful, and an ambitious king, and the Bible for most part agrees. However, the book of Daniel gives additional insight into his character. He is, however, unused to being opposed or disagreed with, and probably hasn't heard the word no since he was a child. Do you all know what a meme is? Most of us know what a meme is. I saw one recently, and it said, the next time your wife gets angry, drape a towel over her shoulders like a cape and say, now you're super angry. The writer then comments, maybe she'll laugh, maybe you'll die. Filled with fear bordering on terror for the consequences of their failure, the magicians continue to dig deeper in a determination to show the king that his request was unreasonable and beyond that which had ever been required by man. Their defence included a factual, strong statement that says, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's dream. Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things of any magicians or astrologers or Chaldeans. In other words, you have no right. And it is a rare thing that the king requires, and there is none other that can show it before the king, except, of course, the gods who aren't actually human. In other words, O king, it's not possible, no one can, and you're crazy. Have you ever been angry and then passed angry? Because Ellen White says, I found this very interesting, the king was angry and very furious. That's her words. The king was angry and very furious and commanded his officials to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And so now it's time for the wise men to be cut into pieces and their houses made into a dunghill. And so the king's officers start rounding up the wise men for execution as per the royal decree. This, of course, includes Daniel and his friends, who at this point are still unaware of the dream, the lack of the ability and failure by the wise men to reveal it, or the state of one very angry king and his decree that they are to be cut into pieces and their houses made into a dunghill. So upon hearing this, Daniel once again takes his life in his hands and unannounced ventures into the king's presence. He is accepted and then begs that time be granted that he can petition his God to reveal to him the dream and its interpretation. You see, Daniel is known to the king, and he holds a certain level of respect. He is observed by the king to be upright, to be principled, to be a Christian, to stand for God and support a God-centered image by his thoughts and actions. The king has seen Daniel for who he is, and he identifies integrity in him. Daniel stands out starkly against the king's wise men. He is different. He is honourable. He is not deceptive or manipulative, and it shows. 2 lions escaped from the Sydney Zoo. One was immediately captured and thrown back into his cage. The other is unseen for over a month. After a month, the cage door swings open and in walks a second lion, rejoining his old friend. "Where have you been?" says the first lion. "We escaped together. I was caught immediately, but you've been gone for a month." Well, says the second line, I cut through a few neighbourhoods, followed the river, crossed the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and hid out in Parliament House on the 3rd floor, in the broom closet. Wow, said the first line. How did you survive? Well, said the second line, every day I got a bit hungry, so I came out of the broom closet and I ate a politician. But then on the 30th day, I made a terrible mistake. What was that, said the first line. Well, said the second line, I ate the cleaning lady. Of course, the terrible mistake the second line made was because the cleaning lady disappeared and everybody noticed. The cleaning lady performed a notable function. The cleaning lady had impact on others' daily lives. The cleaning lady bore outward signs of being productive. She was different. The cleaning lady stood out, and the cleaning lady was missed. 30 politicians disappeared, but the cleaning lady was missed and looked for. The cleaning lady was different. She was valued, and she stood apart from the crowd of apparently wiser men. So the king agrees and he grants Daniel the time he has asked for. So Daniel returns to his house and explains the situation to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And they begin to pray. Ellen White says their faith was strong, and with contrition of heart they pleaded with the Lord that he would grant them deliverance in this their time of special need. Occasionally my mother hands me a piece of paper or an article that she has cut out that sometimes she has held on to for many years. These are articles that even though her sight is dimmed, she has been unable to let go of, as she values them as being great. I have them all in a folder I keep just for that reason. Sometimes they're simple stories or amusing quips, and sometimes they are huge stories or accounts of great men from a time long before me who have stood up for God no matter the outcome. Here is one of them where there are 6 simple, thought-provoking stories. Once all of the villagers decided to pray for rain. On the day of the prayer, all the people gathered, but only one boy came with an umbrella. That's faith. When the father throws a baby into the air, the baby laughs because he knows the father will catch him. That's trust. Every night we go to bed without any assurance of being alive the next morning, but still we set the alarm to wake up. That's hope. We plan big things for tomorrow in spite of zero knowledge of the future. That's confidence. We see the world suffering, but still we get married and have children. That's love. On an old man's t-shirt was written a sentence, I am not 80 years old, I am 16 with 64 years of experience. This is attitude. The Bible says that the God whom Daniel and his friends had honoured now honoured them. The Spirit of the Lord rested upon them, and to Daniel in a night vision was revealed the king's dream and its meaning. Daniel's first act was to thank God for the revelation given him. Listen to his prayer. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, he exclaimed, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom to the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwelleth in him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, that thou hast given me wisdom and might, and hast made known to me now of what we desired of thee. For thou hast made known unto me the king's matter. Going immediately to Arioch, the officer whom the king had commanded to destroy the wise men, Daniel said, "Destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show the king his dream." Quickly the officer ushered Daniel in before the king with the words, "I have found a man from the captives of Judah that will make known unto the king his dream." I imagine there was complete silence in the king's antechamber as Daniel, calm and assured, in the presence of the king of the world's most powerful empire, walks slowly to the centre of the room and addresses the king. Without fear, but with complete respect, Daniel, in his first words, disclaims honour for himself and instead exalts God as the source of all wisdom. But the king cannot restrain himself, interrupting, "Art thou able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and the interpretation thereof?" "Have you seen my dream? What's it about?" And Daniel replies, "The secret which the king hath demanded cannot be shown or interpreted by the wise men, astrologers, magicians, or soothsayers. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the last days." And here he goes. "O king, this is what you saw. Thy dream," Daniel declared, "and the visions in thy head upon thy bed are these. Thou beheld a great image. The great image whose brightness was excellent stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, its breast and arms of silver, its belly and brass of thighs, its legs of iron, his feet part of clay and part of iron. You saw a stone cut out without hands, which smote the image upon its feet that were of iron and clay, and broke them into pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, the gold was broken into pieces, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, and there was no place found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This," confidently declared Daniel, "was your dream." And the king listened with closest attention to every particular, because he knew it was the dream over which he had been so troubled. Imagine turning back time and being able to sit in unseen on this exchange. The king brooding and demanding, leaning forward with anticipation to hear Daniel's words announced and spoken with the authority of the Most High. Huge stone pillars casting shadows in the king's antechamber, shrouding the wise men, astrologers, magicians, and soothsayers in deep shadows as they waited fearfully for the outcome of this exchange, their very lives hanging in the balance. Daniel standing alone in the centre of the room before the king, confident and assured in his God. The dream of the great image was huge. It was powerful, dominant. It spoke of finality at an apocalyptic level. It spoke to end-time events and the passing of times upon time. It gave width and depth to oncoming ages, and it shortened a man's lifespan to almost nothing. And in the end, everything became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, the wind carrying them away, that no place was found for them. Ellen White says the events opening before Nebuchadnezzar reached far forward even until the close of time, and had been shown to him that he might understand the part he was to play in the world's history and the relation that his kingdom should sustain even up into the kingdom of heaven. In the interpretation of the dream, he had been instructed regarding the establishment of God's everlasting kingdom. In the days of these kings, Daniel declared, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left for other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. And then Daniel finishes with these words, the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. It's a fact. And there it was, end-time events open and declared through God's messenger and through a heathen king. And then the Lord acknowledged the power of God. And then the king acknowledged the power of God, saying to Daniel, of a truth it is that your God is the God of gods and a revealer of secrets. Ellen White comments, for a time afterwards, Nebuchadnezzar was influenced by the fear of God, but his heart was not cleansed from worldly ambition and a desire for self-exaltation. The prosperity attending his reign filled him with pride, and in time he ceased to honour God and resumed his old idol worship with increased zeal and bigotry. Nebuchadnezzar died peacefully in the city he had built after a reign of 43 years, but Babylon would not last even another 25 years after his death. The city fell to the Persians in 539 BC, and later efforts to restore it by Alexander the Great never elevated it to the heights it had known under the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. The story of Nebuchadnezzar and the golden statue is an old story, but really it's just a variation of so many others where we, God's followers, are called to set an example, to show integrity, to stand firm and to be counted, to show ultimate trust in God when the temptation to conform with the masses is almost overpowering. In a time where our Christian character and image and the boundaries we live by really matter. We live in a time where suddenly kings, governments and powers control and dictate human rights, religious freedoms and our opinions with swiftly changing laws. Where social media promotes and rules our opinions and thoughts. We are watching it happen now, in front of us, on a worldwide stage, end-time events unfolding. And where we are tempted not to stand out, to forget our boundaries, abandon our integrity and our Christian image and join with the masses because it's just easier. The world rages on around us, over top of us, and sometimes within us. And we just want to simply withdraw from the madness that we see around us, to step aside and let them have at it. After all, we know how it all ends, don't we? But Ellen White reminds us, as in the days of Daniel, so in the closing periods of Earth's history, the Lord will work mightily on behalf of those who stand steadfast for the right. Trust him, have faith in him, believe in him. I have two very short stories to finish with. Story number one. A number of years ago, Al Capone owned virtually all of Chicago. He wasn't famous for any of the right reasons. Instead, he was known for leading an organised group in illegal bootlegging, prostitution and murder. Capone had a lawyer nicknamed Easy Eddie. He was Capone's lawyer simply because he was very good. Eddie's skills had kept Al Capone out of prison for a very long time. Capone showed his appreciation of Easy Eddie by supplying him with every luxury in life, including a gated mansion with servants. The estate he lived in was so big it filled an entire Chicago city block. Eddie lived the high life, and he gave little thought to the evil that went on all around him. But he had one soft spot in his heart. He had a son he loved completely, and he assured that the son had everything in life to help him get ahead. Despite Eddie's involvement in organised crime, he tried to teach his son right from wrong. He wanted his son to be a better man than he was. Yet with all his wealth and influence, there were two things Eddie could not pass on to his son: his good name and a good example. Easy Eddie decided to try and right the wrongs and gain some integrity. He wanted to be someone his son could look up to. So he went to the law enforcement and told them the truth about Al Capone in the hopes it would clean up his tarnished name and offer some semblance of integrity to his son. In order to do this, he knew he would have to testify against Al Scarface Capone and the mob, and that it would most likely cost him dearly. He testified, and within a year, Easy Eddie's life ended in an enormous blaze of gunfire on a lonely Chicago street. However, in Eddie's eyes, he had given the greatest gift he could to his son. He had made a stand for the right, and he had shown integrity and gained respect despite the price. On the body, the police pulled from his pocket a rosary, a crucifix, a religious medallion, and this poem. The clock of life is wound but once, and no man has the power to tell just when the hands will stop, at late or early hour. Now is the only time you own. Live, love, toil with a will. Place no faith in any time, for the clock may soon be still. Second story. World War II created many heroes. One such hero was Lieutenant Butch O'Hare, a fighter pilot. One day a squadron was sent on a mission, and after being airborne, he looked down at his fuel gauge with surprise and realized that someone had forgotten to top up his tank. As a result, he would have to abandon his mission and get back to the ship. He was told by his commander to return to the ship immediately, and he did so reluctantly, dropping out of the formation. As he was returning, he saw something that caused his blood to run cold. A Japanese squadron was speeding towards the American fleet. With all the American planes on a sortie, the ship was defenseless. He had no time to bring back his squadron, and he had no way of warning the fleet of the approaching danger. There was only one thing that he could do, and that was to divert them from the fleet. Not taking into account his own personal safety, he dove into the formation of Japanese planes with his wing-mounted guns blazing, as he surprised one enemy plane after another. When his ammunition ran out, he flew head-on at the enemy planes with the hope of clicking a wing and sending them in a downward spiral. Finally, the surprised and frustrated Japanese squadron broke off and turned back. Butch O'Hare and his battle fighter plane limped back to the carrier. When he landed, he told his story. The film from the gun camera mounted on his plane told the entire tale and showed the extent of Butch's heroism. He had destroyed 5 enemy planes. Because of his actions, he became the Navy's first ace of World War II and the first naval aviator to win the Congressional Medal of Honor. A year later, at age 29, Butch O'Hare was killed in an aerial combat. However, his hometown would not allow his memory to fade, and today the O'Hare International Airport, Chicago, is named after his bravery. 2 stories about integrity, bravery, self-reflection, and self-correction, about boundaries and change. So why these 2 stories? What do they have in common? The answer is Butch O'Hare was Easy Eddie's son. Butch O'Hare was Easy Eddie's son. My question is again this morning, how does the world observe me, and how does it observe you? For in the end, everything will become like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, the wind carrying them away, that no place will be found for them. And the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed, and this kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Thanks for your time. Do we have a last hymn? Ask you to stand for 516, All the Way My Saviour Leads.